What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? We've got the coffee and the grit here in the studio today, and just about every day. That's what we bring. That's what we do, right? So, wow, times they're changing, and thankfully, we are growing. Man, I've got a difference maker in the studio today. I've got Trisha Turner, and this is the second time that she has been on the show, and she was actually episode 50. I think this is episode 164 now, so that's pretty sweet. So we're going back to episode 50, and I thought, man, I'm cruising along. I've got 50 episodes, and so Trisha reached out to me last week and asked me, what should you need advice for coming on the show? I'm like, listen to the last episode and, just see the growth. And then I took my own advice this afternoon and put that episode on. And I swear to God, for about 7 or 8 minutes, I just sat and cracked up to myself. And then I had to fast forward because I couldn't take the brutality anymore. It was so funny. I've been asked in this show, what I've thought about past episodes, looking back and seeing the growth. And there's no better way to look back and see your growth than to go back and look and see your growth. So super funny. The episode, I promise, it's really, really good once you get past the first 12 minutes or so of me not editing any kind of audio whatsoever and not just throwing up the whole conversation. But hey, you're going to get some raw conversation, and luckily we didn't say anything bad about anybody. But the absolute growth, and it's in life, we're either growing or we're dying. I think the biggest thing I got out of my community college education is I had this professor at Lansing Community College that Dr. Warren, history professor, and he was talking about learning and growing, and he was like, we're growing every day, every year, all throughout our whole entire life. You never know everything. And he was like, the day that you're done learning, he was like, you might as well go home, open up the chest or drawer, pull out the revolver, put it in your mouth, and pull the trigger. And I think about that as I say that out loud now. I'm like, Dr. Warren had probably been fired in today's standards. I don't know how triggering that is, literally. But I was like, wow, was such a profound thought to me that I still remember it. I still remember Dr. Jack Warren. Sorry if I got you in trouble. Not saying your name. But that was, again, it just was very graphic and very visual, and it caught my attention. And man, it rings true. If we're just existing and letting life happen and we're not taking an opportunity to grow, shame on us. And so that's why Trisha is on the episode today. Trisha is owner of Turner Design Group. And we talked about the beginning in starting a business, but I've watched and been able to witness firsthand over these last couple of years, her growth and her business growth. So I'm so excited to dive in and talk about it. So Trisha, welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So what did you think about listening back to that old episode?
A lot of the what we talked about for me is still true.
Yeah.
With growing as a family business, and so it was difficult to listen to myself for an hour. That was interesting, but a lot of the core concepts we talked about are still true.
Isn't that
was
awesome?
Cool. Yeah.
I love, I'm a note taker. I've always had notebooks, right? And so going back to the history, even my jobs and leadership and stuff, I have all these notebooks that I have collected. And I love going back to them and looking every once in a while and being like, oh, wow, okay. I thought I just discovered something today, but that was something I wrote in this notebook. Actually, I've had that kind of in my core thoughts, my core process all the time. It's always been there. So it's so cool to see that it's still aligned.
Yeah. And I think too, when you start a business, there's a lot of reflection, and I wasn't really sure why, but then as I've read more books, and it's define your purpose and your core values, it's oh, that's why this is working. That's why we're successful and growing. So it's cool to do it my own way.
Cool. To do it your own way.
Yeah.
In bringing in a family business.
Yeah. And that has its challenges too. This year, we've been doing some different organizational, because we're at that next point in our company. Are we going to stay, or are we going to grow? And we want to grow. So it's been interesting. But this year, my husband and I are equals. It's not before he was under me. So now he's in project management, and we're working together as equals. And my goodness, that's been huge for us. I mean, it was a huge step when we started, and it was him and I only at job sites, and we really butt heads.
Yeah.
We're just two different people, and I think we're both alphas. I think that's okay to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like that was a big step, hiring employees, me not working with him daily. And now it's another big step and something I've found about my leadership is I'm very strong and I'm very driven, and that can be more of a dictatorship. So I have to be very careful how I move about, because I respect him and I appreciate him and I love him. And so it's interesting because we had something happen this morning, and I'm like, whew, okay, so he is an employee, like switch off the relationship hat, because I don't know. I mean, our spouses, they see us.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And like, I don't want to unload on him, but I really want to say, go a little crazy. But I'm like, I would not speak that way to an employee. So I need to lock it up. Okay, how are we going to make this? And then it's just interesting because when I act different, he acts different in a good way. So it's like, it's that ripple effect.
Yeah.
So that's been huge for us. And my stepdaughter, she did work for us the last couple of summers. So that was cool. But we are very encouraging for her this year to get her own job. We told her, I think you need to take some shit. Like, I think you need to work for somebody else. And I think you need to have a bad manager. And these are all like life skills.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm not like pushing her too hard about it, but she's interested in getting a job. So we're going to see what happens soon.
That's
and
awesome.
Then my 5-year-old, she helps unload plants. She loves excavators. That's her jam. So she already knows a lot about plants, and she can like dig with the excavator, which my husband's like, proudest dad ever. So she can like move dirt with an excavator, and she's 5, of course, with supervision. But it makes for some pretty hilarious videos.
That is awesome.
And that is her favorite piece of equipment. And her so it's exciting, and she really wants to operate a crane. So we have some friends, and I just have to make a couple phone calls. But we know a grandpa in Livingston County that would love to show her the ropes. So who knows, when we advance to pools, if that's something we decide to do, she could be the person that lifts the pool over the house. So
that is so
who knows
amazing.
where things could go. So you just don't know.
I can only imagine you posting those videos and them going viral. Like you
maybe. I'm sure OSHA, or, like all the videos are at our house.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I need to tread lightly.
That's true. I didn't think about that aspect. I'm always thinking of the content.
Still, maybe, but I don't know. And she's always with my husband, so she's on his lap. But yeah, I don't know.
That's so cool, though, to be able to give that experience. And that's something she's going to remember for the rest of her life.
Yeah. And my dad was a contractor growing up, too. And like we always had skid steers, and we were always doing big projects. So it's kind of fun. And it's just a different angle for her. And it's certainly a different angle for my stepdaughter, because she got to see, my husband and I work for other people, decide we're going to do this business and launch off and grow. And now we're in our dream house. And so she's been able to see that progression, which I think is really cool, because life is what you make it. So it's exciting.
And to see that actually be true.
Yes.
Because I know you're probably saying that constantly, that life is what you make it. But then to see it
to show it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, I'm from a small town, and a lot of people do the same thing. And they work for a certain place, and then they have kids, and then they grow up, and then they retire at a certain age, because that's our society.
Yep.
And it's like, delete all that crap. Like, you can do whatever you want.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's up to you.
And I love it, because we're like going back to the first episode of talking about starting your business, and all the people being like, that's probably not a good idea.
Oh, that's not safe at all. And it's like, now that I'm in the position I'm in, are there some long days, long weeks, nights that you're up thinking about payroll or certain things? But it's worth it, because I'm in charge of my destiny. Like, I don't have to like beg a boss to be like, please give me a chance. Let me sell this contract. Let me just bid this a little bit lower than our normal profit margin. I just got a good feeling. I just do it.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
That's super
and
cool.
It's worth it.
Yeah. You're building something. It's got your name on it.
Yeah. Oh, and that's my husband's thing. He's like, my name's on the truck. Like, this and that, this can't be happening, or this is going to happen this way, because I'm all in. So it's cool.
It's like having those high expectations.
Yes. Yep. It's different when your name's on the truck.
Your name's on the truck.
It is.
Exactly. Me and Mike Noonan talked about this and talked about like, as we're like onboarding and training people and like, you're having that high standard. You don't want to say, oh, don't go to that person, or I can't put that person on that job because
they all have to be A's players. They all have to be winners. And we've had some things with employees where we had a C player and it's like, okay, well, you either got to move them up and move them out. And it's conversations, but something I've learned since our last podcast, because now I have employees, is sometimes it's as simple as just like, how are you doing? And then sometimes they'll just unload and like you don't realize all these stressors because we're all people and everything changes so quick or can. So it's sometimes just having that conversation. And we've been encouraged. We did take on a business coach this year, which has been really helpful. Especially as we're doing this huge growth this year in particular. But he told us to think about having lunches with our employees because he's like, there's just something about breaking bread with people.
Yep.
And we haven't done that yet because we got that advice late March. We're in our 90 days to sell, which in landscaping, some people call it 90 days of hell. Memorial weekend is definitely a benchmark. It's like, how much have you sold? Like I mean, you failed as a landscape.
You're selling everything out.
This is the time. So this is your big time for the calendar year to sell for the whole year, basically. And so it's interesting.
So tell me about your sales process with that. Are you doing most of the sales?
Yes. Yep. And that's something this year we've seen quite a volume in custom landscape designs, and that's interesting for us. I mean, that's something we're really good at, and that is my forte. I went to school for landscape architecture. I really appreciate a phase plan, or like a dream plan to phase it out properly. I mean, people waste thousands of dollars being like, you know what, let's do the patio before the deck. And it's like, why would you do that? Because we have to drill post holes through your patio, now compromising the entire patio. So it's like there's certainly a way to phase a project to make those budget amounts work to a maximum, but still like not have to refinance the house or go bankrupt. But I love the design, but that's been a big deal for us. And two, with our design presentations, we're different than a lot of contractors. I don't even know how anybody else can do this, but like, we provide installation for the presentation. So some people don't do that until like the revisions are done. But in my mind, I think about it as if I was the purchaser or the consumer. Well, I would make a decision based on what that value is. Like, and I was just talking with Alan and ATA just yesterday about a remodel, and I'm like, I don't value a $6,000 vanity in my 5-year-old daughter's bathroom, but I'd pay $1,000 or $2,000. So it's like, in my opinion, people need to know: do you want a $3,000 tricolor beech tree, or would a $900 maple tree bring you just as much joy and as much shade? Well, we should talk about that, because then if this phase one is $10,000 more than you want it to be, for example, well, let's talk about like what are your minimums, which usually we do that before the design, but sometimes things come out because things can get emotional. I mean, these are emotional conversations. This is your outdoor area. And something I've learned about sales is there's so much more going on. Like sometimes this could have been an inheritance from a family member that passed, and it's really emotional. And they're like, Dad always said I should have done this. And so now they're like honoring that, but they also want to make it their space. With the designs, we're seeing a big volume of that is custom landscape designs, which we provide. And then we also always provide the proposal, so you know where the value is. And then we can have that conversation. And sometimes, I've found the budget is total BS. I don't know about you, but it's like, it's good to know like what you can afford.
Yeah.
But if you have to have it, you're going to figure it out. So it's like, And sometimes I will talk because like in landscape, it's sky's the limit. But it's like usually people know what they don't want to spend. So if someone doesn't have a budget, well, is 15,000 too much? And you can tell very quickly. People get squeamish. They like
You
sweat.
can see it in their body language.
Oh
right?
yeah. So I'm like, okay. So then what we're gonna focus on is this. And some people just say, do this. I want to see what it is, and then we go from there. But for us, a big volume this spring in particular was custom landscape design. And I'm proud to say we've closed all the design installations. So, I mean, a couple are pending, but like they're going to move forward. So it's really exciting.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is cool.
100%.
Yeah, of the designs, yes.
That's amazing.
It is pretty crazy.
Well, it's so cool because that's your forte and that's what you really enjoy
it's my
doing.
bread and butter. That and like placemaking. Like but in general, it's like just continuity. Like one of my jams is like, so we have a landscape, for example, where they have ledge rock in the backyard. Well, like, let's use ledge rock in the front yard because I never want an area that we designed to look like, oh, well, we just plunked in a unilock patio and the rest of this is all old school 90s pavers. Like, you want it to blend and to look intentional. And so that's continuity is my jam. And I enjoy it. And I think that comes through in the sales because it's easy. I believe in my product. It's easy. And people can feel my excitement and they can feel that I'm genuine and I'm not just a turd, which a lot of people know is you can smell a turd. I know I can. And what do they say? It's like you make a decision about someone within the first 3 seconds. Yeah. It's like posture is important, being polite, starting a decent handshake, knowing someone's name. It all matters.
It all matters.
Yep.
I love at the beginning, or probably before we're recording, it's like you can sense those people pretty quickly, like the fake people.
Yeah, forget it.
Yep. I love, so a couple of things. So we talked about the presentation I gave last night, and it's always about being the difference. And talking about in sales in general, like you have to have that. You have to have a confidence that you are the difference. And what I was telling people is like people are coming to you because you're the expert, right? And that's what you're saying is I'm the expert in these things. Like people don't know what tree or they don't know any of the things. That's where you come in with your expertise and your difference is being able to help them with that process and guide them through the best procedure. But you're so confident that you do that, one. And two, the other thing we talked about is people will find a way for what they want.
Absolutely.
For their dreams and their visions. They will find a way to afford it. And I was sharing this story last night. Like I dated this girl in my early 20s and she smoked. And she was a college student and she worked like a telemarketing part-time job and she made like $100 a week. It was like to pay her rent and bills and then eat and everything else. There was very little money in there for her, right? But she still found a way to buy cigarettes every day. To smoke. And one day it dawned on me she wasn't eating dinner. And I was like, what are you doing? But then she was smoking. And I was like, did you just buy those today? But then you're not going to eat? Like, and like what priorities? And it was like, wow, people will, for what they want to do, they'll make whatever sacrifice they have to do for whatever they're sold on.
100%. And when I was in college, when I graduated in 2009, there were no big girl jobs. So I stayed working for the landscape contractor I was working for. And that summer, I mean, I had huge tuition, or it felt like big girl tuition payments, I joke.
Yeah.
I did pay them all off last month, 2 months ago. So I own my degree.
Yes,
I know, Big Ten, baby, self-funded. But yeah, I remember I was racing. My husband and I, we met doing amateur dirt bike racing. And I was doing the Hare Scramble series, and it was very important for me to keep up with that series. And I knew I was approaching. I could see the weather forecast. It was a mud race. Mud races always cost me like $300 because you have to like replace all your brake pads. You got to replace the chain. It just messes stuff up. But I'll tell you what, this girl, she does good at mud races because I'm patient. I'm a slow, cautious rider, and I got first place that weekend. So I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
But I knew that going into that week was going to be tough. And I had these tuition payments and I was paying big girl bills, but not big girl pay. And so I ate tuna fish. I ate 39-cent tuna fish all week for lunch. The next week I made my mud race, paid the $300 to fix my bike. all to do it again. And it's like, could I, like, I don't know. And this is going to date me, but like a lot of these kids, they do Grubhub, like some people every day. And it's like, that would have never been an option because I wanted to race my bike and there's only enough money. And I'm not going to ask someone, oh, mom, dad, they would say no.
Yep.
But like, I need $300 so I can do my race. That's just for fun. No, I'm going to eat tuna fish. And that's what I ate for lunch. And it's protein. And it was, I mean, looking back, that was disgusting. But hey, it worked. And I got to do what I wanted to do. So,
but you made the sacrifices to do what you wanted to do.
And that's where I wanted to be. And it all worked out.
You probably wouldn't trade that for the world now.
No, and I had so much fun doing it. And I call them my motorcycle family. It's like all these people, they're all like, let's get it done. It's, I don't know. It's just, they're very interesting people and it's just a good family unit. And now my daughter, she was in her first enduro race last summer.
I remember seeing the picture.
Oh my gosh. And so she was just telling me last night, she's like, this year I'm not riding with you or dad. I got my own bike. And so it's exciting. It's cool to, I mean, it's a family thing and it's fun to see these families grow. And when you're on the track, it's like, who's got another brake line? I need some spit and some gum and like all these random things because like you're in the woods and you got to fix your bike or you're not going to finish.
MacGyvering it, problem solving.
I like that. I never thought of it that way, but it totally is.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, all these people I still keep in touch with and it's been cool.
That's a really cool experience, and I love like thinking about like hobbies and things that we do and the lessons that we learn from them.
Oh yeah.
You know, like I look at golf as like extreme patience, you know, like because your mindset. Yeah. If you lose your mindset in the game of golf, you're done for the day. Like go home. If you got to adjust it because you're done. Like you're in your head. Like good. Like motorcycle riding. It was like a lot of like I can control me, but I can't control other people. I've got to make sure I'm very observant in my area. It's very eye-opening. There's so many lessons from that, you know. You look at riding the bikes and like having to fix parts and be on the go. And
oh yeah. Yep. And if you get hung up on a log, like I don't know. You just suck it up, figure it out. Like you're gonna have to move your bike and you might be tired, but figure it out because you're like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna give up? Yeah. You're not gonna finish the race. You just paid $80.
Yeah, exactly.
Run it. I don't know.
I hate tuna fish and paid $80 for finishing this race.
Finish, right? So yeah, that was a cool experience and it's fun to stay in touch with all those people and of course I've married in, so it's like my husband's family is really big into it and it's been fun.
That's cool. And again, another experience with the kids, right? Like
yes, and it's fun because like I don't know, my stepdaughter she enjoys dirt bike riding, but certainly not like my daughter. Like she is pumped and it's pretty exciting and it's extra fun because it's like, you know, of our kids, you want them to do their own passions. And I really enjoy my hobbies. Yeah. And so whatever. If my daughter doesn't want to do dirt bike racing, no problem. She can excel in something else, whatever. But it's pretty cool when they like your hobbies.
It is pretty
It's
cool.
like, all right, let's go. So it's fun.
I've always wanted to be that. I've loved sports forever, right? And so like I've always wanted to be that dad that didn't push it on their son, but if he likes it, awesome. Oh you know, like if he likes art or music, we got him a drum set when he was really little, like trying to see what his interests were. But since he loves basketball so much, it's so awesome. Now at this point, he's a sophomore in high school, and for like the last year, he's been playing with me with grown men, you know, on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and it's just a different level in the relationship, and it's like something cool we get to do with each other. So it is so awesome. When it is.
And my husband, he started late, but when we were dating, he did like a sport bike racing series and it was so much money, but he did so good the year he did it. And it was funny because he's always said, he's like, oh, if one of our kids are like at that time it was his daughter. He's like, if Paige has an interest, we're just going to go all in. We're going to get the toter home and we're going to do it. And it did seem like she wasn't super interested. So we didn't push it and it's not a big deal. But with Alice, we're going straight sport bike. We're not messing around. So we'll see what happens. And again, it's something.
She's moving the dirt, jumping the bikes.
If she wants to do it, if she doesn't, and there's any resistance, forget it. I'm not going to be that person that pushes and So, but
I still love and having fun, right? And like when it stops being fun and it becomes a chore.
Correct. Yeah, and I do think there's like a good mix because. like when I was in gymnastics and I did that in high school and I had a lot of fun, but there were some days I needed a little push or like, you're part of a team, Trisha, you got to do it.
Yep.
But yeah, so a little bit of a nudge, but they should be able to make that decision themselves.
Absolutely.
And have that freedom to choose.
So awesome. So you talk about like having the employees, and that was one of the things that stood out in the conversations I was listening back to it, is you were talking about going through the process.
The HR freaked me out.
Yeah. So what's that been like?
Oh, it's interesting. By far, I don't think anyone starts a business being like, oh, I'm so excited to hone in on HR. Like, I'm really good at landscaping. I enjoy working with people. I enjoy creating these beautiful outdoor entertainment areas, or these places where people are going to have these big milestone events with their children and just live in. But employees, and it's like when you're an employee, like, I don't know, you're an entrepreneur, you're a go-getter, you're driven, similar to me. So it's like, you just do. You've got your list and you're self-motivated and you do.
Yep.
Well, it's different with different generations. And it's like, what are you motivated by? Because like my husband and I, we're motivated by money.
Yeah.
And food.
Yeah.
Hey,
and food.
Sweet.
And it takes money to buy food.
It does. But it's interesting too with the generation below us, especially, they want to know the purpose and what's this bigger, and they have much healthier boundaries. Like when John and I, my husband and I, were in our 20s, you couldn't give us enough overtime. We're like, Saturday, we're there. We'll work 16 hours on Friday, whatever.
Yeah.
And that is not this generation. So it's, that's interesting to deal with. But two, the larger thing is, starting a business. It's like, I don't have anyone to fall back on. Like, I can't ask my parents for 15 grand if something fell through, or just an example. So it's like, I'm the one who's floating my own boat. So it's always scared me, starting a business, is like, with us living in such a litigious society, like how could one person take me out? And that goes into a whole nother trust thing and whatever. But that was really concerning to me, is like, I don't know HR and I don't know the laws. And so definitely getting aligned with, I call her my HR consultant. She's amazing. And I refer to so many people that are establishing new businesses, because it is important to have a handbook. And I'm so glad I did that early on, and to have procedures. And just today, my husband and I were talking about an employee that's been called in quite a bit. And it's like, we have processes in place. Like, we have in our handbook, it's a 3 strikes, you're out. We enforce it. And that's super important, because the moment you don't enforce that, then it can be like, then when you do enforce it, it's like, well, so-and-so got to do this and now it's discrimination.
Yeah.
So it's like, I just don't want to deal with all that stuff. And we did survive our first fictitious unemployment claim. Yes. Because I'm awesome with my paperwork, because that's what the HR person said I had to be. Yeah. So I'm
What's
really
her name?
good.
Can you shout her out?
Jody Schaefer.
Awesome.
Love you.
Yeah.
And she just did a huge newsletter. She does a monthly newsletter. It's amazing. And she just did a huge one on the new laws. What is it? It's about like salary and non-competes. There's a lot that went on
the whole non-compete stuff.
last month. So she's she's amazing. Thanks, Jody. But
which is so good for the non-compete stuff. I always hated that.
It's stupid.
I understand, I guess, being a business owner, where
I do too in certain things.
But look at you, like you were in the industry. If you were told you can't go start a business because it's your livelihood, it's
which there was. I was a part of a non-compete, and so I went off the radar for 2 years, because I was technically in that same area. I did not take any clients. That's very important to me. I maintain professionalism and ethics always, but I just went off the map, and they ended up finding me. And like the people from that company, before I left, they're like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "You're gonna have to find me." And I didn't really like social media anyway, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think when you hire someone, I don't know. Sometimes, because it does come to, am I going to eat or am I not, with some people, and they're willing to blur those lines of professionalism and take a client. But I would never do that. And that's not my thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you identify that when you hire someone. It just depends how desperate they get to be if they decide to launch off and do their own thing. Yeah, but that's not me.
Most people will, and this is the thing, and I've had like salespeople on my team that have been really, really good and created just a loyalty from their customers. I just got Matt Bergen, and like when he left our company, he left and went to another company, and it was like people would go wherever he went. I moved him. He was in our Jackson location. I moved him to our Ypsi location 1 month after he'd been in Jackson, and he'd been our number one salesperson for years. And he was concerned at like, what's that going to do for my business? He had his best month ever because he picked up new business in his new location, and all
he had
the
his
people
old
from
ones?
Jackson traveled to see him. But so like when he left, it was like I already know those people are gone. They're going to follow Matt wherever he goes, you know? And like, it's just one of those things. Like if somebody likes you that much, they're not even a fan of the business. They're a fan of that employee, you know? And
I agree with that 100%. Because I did have this non-compete with that one company, I did have people reach out to me, and I was like, you know what? I just really feel comfortable if we let the dust settle.
Yeah.
Even though I quit, like I did my 2 weeks and whatever, but it was, it's important to me to know that I did good because they fed me when I was hungry, and I think that's good to honor. But some of those clients, like we're doing a landscape for one of them, one of the HOAs of this client, because when I left that company, I wrote thank you notes to all my customers. And it was just to thank, genuine. It was, and I'm a big thank you note person, but it was just to genuinely be like, you know what, I really enjoyed working with you and getting to know your dogs or whatever. And that person, that particular person that we're working at her sub, she's like, I kept that. I thought that was so cool. And she found me on LinkedIn years later. So it matters.
It matters.
And people can see that. And her husband owns a business. So it's like, they know if you're a turd or not.
They absolutely do. I love that you brought up thank you cards. It used to be and it's a habit that I need to get back into.
Oh, I get going good on them, and then I like pause.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate thank you cards, and you just get crap in the mail anyway. So it's so wonderful when you get a handwritten card.
And I got yours, after we had our trust builder and set this up a couple months ago.
Yeah, and then you pitched me in your event. So it was like a win-win.
Yep.
So that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super awesome.
Yeah.
It's super awesome.
Goes around, comes around.
It absolutely does. But those thank you cards, you're right. People don't get stuff like that.
Nope. And people don't take the time. Mm-hmm. So it is cool.
It's the little things that make the difference.
Agreed.
I remember we probably talked about this in the last episode of talking. No, I don't think we did. I think this was probably afterwards. You had a SiriusNet member minute one time, and you're like, and I will follow up with the people you refer me to. And it's like, it's funny that's a selling point, like that has. But,
people have gotten lazy and they're like cool with it. I don't know. It's crazy. That's why I'm like in my member minute this week, I'm like, we're hungry. Yeah, and something I talked with Janine Yancey about is like, I'm just not interested in working with anyone that's not hungry right now. Like, if you're so busy, good for you.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, we have some pretty big goals. It's not to say I don't have to prioritize certain things for sure to be able to make that phone call. But yeah. And now that we have staff that can help. So my office manager, when we get a request through SiriusNet, I do give her a little extra information, like this one's from Jason Tracy. He does this and blah, blah, blah. And this is some information about that person, but they get a call. But we do ask for a phone number as well as an email if we can, because sometimes one of them's fat fingered and one of them is not valid. So then that makes me feel terrible because people are like, you never called back. And I was like, if we never called back, it's because we did not have the right number. So what's your name and what's your number? Yeah, for sure.
It's funny how often that happens, actually. I do a lot of stuff
all the time.
Where people will put their information into my CRM. And it's like always wrong email.
It is. Yep. So one of them's got to be right.
Yep.
And we try to have it so you can't move on unless if you have both those. Anyway, but sometimes that can be cumbersome, and then people get mad about that.
Oh yeah.
You just never know.
Yeah. But no, you try to do what you can, but there's just some stuff that you can't control.
And I've talked with so many people. It's incredible to me that any company would pay to like have a website or any type of social media and not answer the phone. Like, I just don't get it.
That's so true.
It's crazy. Yeah. Answer the bloody phone.
Yep.
And if you're behind, hey, who hasn't been? Hey, I'm behind.
Yep.
But I got your voicemail. I'm so sorry or whatever. Because sometimes they get like caught in the ether or something. And then I'll get one voicemail and then like 4 others show up and I'm like, sweet.
Sweet.
But I'll return them.
And that's the thing.
And be that vulnerable or whatever.
It's being vulnerable. And I've done that so many times. I've missed phone calls or texts or emails. And then I'm going through my email and I'm like, oh man, that was like a month ago. And I'll be like, oh my God, fell off my plate. And people are just like, no worries. Because it's happened to them probably too. Most of the time.
People get it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then I guess they were not a good fit. And that's
that's absolutely it. And it happened. I'm being vulnerable and apologizing and would love to revisit.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it just goes down to being genuine.
Absolutely.
And
it's a way of being.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to deal with that?
Yeah.
You know, or be around that.
It's that way of being for sure. And it's, again, going back to that conversation beforehand of knowing when there's a turd, knowing when there's, when this person before you is a turd. And it, you can see the really authentic people. Mm-hmm. Like, I met a lady last night. You could see her heart in her eyes, like you could just see that she's like a good person. Like, you can usually sense that pretty quickly and easily.
Yep. And sometimes with like different prospects that I meet with, sometimes I'm like, I don't know. But
yeah.
And sometimes I do make the wrong call. But for the most part, I'm pretty right on.
So funny. And I know Steve listens to this. I'm going to share this story because I think I've ever shared this about it. But like first when I met Steve, I was like, this guy's too nice. Like, there's no way he's like that, right? Like and then I met him again and he like remembered stuff from our conversation. Like we had like a year before that or something. And I was like, okay, like this guy's interesting. And I'm like, and it turns out he's actually just a really, really good guy.
He's awesome. Yeah. And I think I got the wrong first impression from him as well. But it wasn't, and I've said this before, it wasn't until I decided to break out on my own and do my own company that him and I had like multiple conversations, and it was so clear. It was like, you want to join SiriusNet, whatever, but here's my business advice to you. I've been through certain things, and I think you need to look at it this way or do it this way. And I was like, wow, he is really a pure person. And I mean, he'll be a friendship for me for life. Like, what a great guy.
It's huge. And that's what me and Scott Lee talked about this in our episode and talked about, like, I've been a part of so many different companies and organizations and things that when you leave, like there are some core friends and relationships you have, but most people like turn their back. Like you're not part of that club anymore.
Sometimes it's like a cult.
Sometimes it's
and
like
you
a
just
cult,
get cut off.
And you see groups like this where like if you drop out of it, you're no longer part of the family or you're no longer welcome or you're no longer, but that's just not the way it is here. We see people that are welcome back to the door that are no longer part of the group, that have came back in as guests or have come to the breakfast or whatever the case may be. Because that's just the way Steve is.
Yeah. And for some people, like I know someone that was in our group that was a budget issue. So like, how could you fault her for that? Because she's an employee. It's not like she can be like, well, we're not going to do this today. Like she's just, I mean, she only gets approved for so much, and that's facts.
Yeah.
But other people, they have family issues. Like you got to take care of your family before you can do your business. So yes, I do agree with you. It's nice because he doesn't like call people out on it. And sometimes we don't even know. I'm like, Steve, what happened to so-and-so? Oh, yeah, they had to move on because of X, Y, Z, or it just didn't work out. And it's like, that's cool. His professionalism really shines.
Yeah.
And then that's who attracts the difference makers and the good people. So, and our group is amazing.
It's so amazing.
Wednesday, 10 a.m., baby.
I love when guests come because it's like, it's got to be like so incredible. And then we did mostly, it was like the hybrid, but most of us were in person yesterday. And I was like, there's a couple guests there. It's like, I could only imagine how they felt in that environment.
Yeah, and immersed in it. It's cool. And to have all those positive people. And I mean,
that truly care about each other, that want to see each other get better. But then you hear everybody talking, and how many people we're talking about, we're hiring. We're hiring. We need more people. Like everybody in our group is growing.
It is really cool. And it's cool to see how different people are doing it different.
Yeah.
And I think it might be because of our sectors that kind of like trades and overlap a little, but like Mike with the mitten junk removal and then Clark with the Griswolds, it's like, okay, well, I did this and it wasn't effective. Or did you hear this is how they're doing this on this platform? Huge win for us. So I think it helps to share those tidbits because hiring is just painful. And like, we do have a good process right now that's taken a while for us as a company to get down. But yeah, I mean, I'd prefer to just work on beautiful landscapes, right? But we have to make sure that we have a process and vet the right people because again, my name's on the trucks and shirts and that I take that personally.
And at the same time, you don't want to be the one doing all the time, right? Like
I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't work. So, and that's another thing with this year. The change for me is to not be out in the field. And I totally planted some annual flowers today, but it was also like a planting demo. Like, this is how you do it. But it's, who was I talking? Oh, I was talking with Melissa at Brighton Lighthouse about it today. It's like, you kind of, I see why people stop growing, because like I certainly had this vision and I enjoy being outside and I enjoy doing the work. And now that I'm in my position, it's like my predominant position this year is supposed to be sales and a little bit of marketing. But yeah, so it's just sales. And it's interesting because I love gardening and I love being at people's houses. So I just have to find that love and passion in another way. Yeah. And maybe it's that I sprinkle in like site walks, because those are still enjoyable for all of our garden clients to just take a look around once a month. So there's still ways I can do that. But it is different and it's change, and change is interesting.
That is interesting.
It's good. You got to embrace it. It's also annoying. Yeah. But you got to be a little uncomfortable to grow, I think. Because if you stop growing, I don't want to do what your professor said. Holy cow.
That's
I know, crazy.
It's so graphic. And I think that's, again, why I'll always remember it, because I just didn't see it going there. He's teaching history, right? Like, where did that?
You're like, how does this correlate?
But I've always been the like one that like drew to motivation, and it was like, that's the motivation right there.
Yeah. And the more that I read from like Navy SEALs and like David Goggins, I really identify with the no bullshit tactic. It's bullshit. Like, figure it out, do it, drop everything, run in the rain, get your 5 miles done or 30, whatever they do every day. It's crazy.
Speaking of kids,
I love it.
In David Goggins, like the other day, my wife Gracie asked Jackson, my son, if what book he chose to read for American Lit, because they have this book that they have this project they have to do, and they could pick any book that fall under a certain criteria. And he was like, David Goggins book, and I was like,
amazing, wonderful read,
and he was like, yeah, you've read it before.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
like
what a
several
story.
times, like 6 minimum. I've read that, went back to that book so many times.
It's a good one.
Like really, like, so I, talk about the whole eat faces thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I had that, I said that, like it was a thing, like my leadership team had talked about it. But when I read that book the first time and he talks about taking souls, I was like, oh,
this is what it's all about.
That's what it's about. And so I'm like, okay, he has this whole like mantra and this whole like rallying for his community, right? It's like, boom, I'm going to plug in eat faces, kind of the same thing. You learn from people. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love reading. And one of my clients, him and his wife talked me into using Audible. And one of the first books he recommended, he's like, all right, so you're motivational or whatever, you're into this stuff and you're similar to me. He's like, this is your reading list. And the first one was Living with a Seal. What's by Jesse. He's married to the Spanx chick, the person that developed Spanx. And anyways, it'll come to me later. Yeah. But Living with a Seal was quite the book. And then they were like, it was like 3 Navy SEAL books in a row. And I'm like, I love this. And then I've been in Audible and never looked back. So that's been really cool to listen to books. I love it. And I love to read too. So it's just double whammy. But you can learn so much from them. And it's cool. I mean, what else are you going to do driving around?
That's exactly it. Audible is so...
Yeah, and maybe it's because I'm just older and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. But yeah.
It's nothing like your Walkman.
Yeah, listening to some inspirational stuff.
You have the time, you're doing the landscape, you're doing the thing.
I'm driving job site to job site. Yeah.
Yep. That was always my car, like a rolling university. But back in the day, I was like putting in CDs or tapes,
Oh, yeah, I was there too. Yep, and the mixtapes.
Zig Ziglar and like.
Sure, all the good ones.
Well, you're a Yes Seminar person too. You went through the Yes Seminars. We talked about that.
Yep, we did. And I am in the Cardone zone. I love him. And now that his wife, Elena, is doing stuff, I love her too. So I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. And I do listen to the Closer's Survival Guide quite a bit in the mornings when I work out. And some of those one-liners are so funny and some of them feel cheesy to say. But like then I think about when I was sold on certain things, and some of those salespeople use some of these, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. I should just do this now.
You're right.
So it's like
the ways of the Jedi. What you want to do is, you're right.
Yep. You're right. We should just do this now. And it's just something so silly, but people, I think, sometimes need permission, especially in our society where, I don't know, it just depends who they're around and what their surroundings are. But if people like in my hometown are saying, oh, wow, that's really expensive. And it's like, but I work hard and I value this. So I'm going to do this.
Yep.
So it depends who you're around and whatever.
Well, that's the thing. And again, how badly do they want it?
Yes.
You know, because that's the wall of the justification. You know, when they want it bad enough, they will start framing and saying, well, I do work hard. I do deserve this. They'll look for little like signs, like they'll have a dream about it, or they'll see a sign or a commercial. Be like, oh, it's like God speaking to me and I've got to do this thing, right? Like you'll find the signs because your mind is going to look for what you desire and you know,
I
what
agree
you're
with
aligned
that.
with.
Yep. And it's a sign I'm even here. So let's go.
Sign I'm even here.
Let's talk about this. Let's do this landscape. It's going to be sweet.
I showed up. You called. I showed up. It's a sign.
Here I am. There's a proposal. Kapow.
Boom. The circumstances meet.
Yeah.
This is what, so like I did 2 presentations yesterday. They're both on overcoming objections. And it's like this, you get the surface level ones, you know, the ones that's like, I can't afford it and stuff like that. But it's like your due diligence to really go through and figure out the reasons that overcome those objections at the end.
Yeah. And I mean, this is obviously your forte, but I don't know. I find sometimes it's like simple things and it's like mindset. I don't know. It's different, or maybe they're seeing down the pipe that their kid's going to go to school and like college in like 4 years. And it's like, whoa, like, I don't know. People do weird things and they make weird judgments. And so it's like, well, how can I help you? Like, I'm good at landscape. How can I help you? If we're looking at a phase project, then I would do phase like this. And there's no judgment. And I purchase things this way. It's like, I need to know a budget number because I have no idea how much it is to do this. So it's like, at least then in my mind, and I might be able to afford to do it now, but like maybe I want to have some savings set aside to do something else. So I just need to know the price point. And we have a lot of people we work with that we work on proposals. We're working with one right now. And so we worked on the proposal and the design solution last summer, and we're going to do it this year. And it's a pretty big project. So it's, it's not just one and done. It's kind of a relationship and working on things.
I love that you brought that up, because it's like you talk about like phases for one.
Oh, yeah.
You know, being able to take people through phases.
Yep.
But also having the patience, and when you're in sales, it can be like, you know, you can feel rejected, or I had a client once that he had no poker face. As soon as the person said, we're done, or we're like, no, his like whole entire demeanor would change, and you knew that he was like upset. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to blow this. Like, this is going to be bad.
So he's got to work on it and be in front of a mirror. And I had a boss that told me, he was like, Trisha, when that person said this, your whole expression was on your entire face.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to work on that.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out. Because people, they'll freak out about that. And then that person, and he was right. So it's, I do feel like I've had some professional training in that, and I can definitely understand, like, to not wear it on my face.
Stay with it, because just because they're saying no right now doesn't mean it's dead, or they won't come back to you.
Correct.
And that's one of the stories I shared last night. Was I had somebody that told me he was interested in doing coaching with me, and we had a good dialogue, but we never talked price, and he said, well, I can't afford it.
As compared to what?
And I was like, how do you know? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, how do you know you can't afford it? And he's like, I'm like, we didn't talk any numbers. We didn't talk price. And he was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I'm like, even if you want to do this coaching, if now's not the time, I totally get it. But if you have to work for something, how do you know when you've arrived if you don't know and you've just assumed you can't afford it?
Yeah.
He's like, oh shit. So then we talked price.
Yeah. Now this is a different discussion.
Yeah.
And then too, I feel like, because this is how I buy, it's about the value.
Yes.
Like, so if that person can work with you in coaching, sure, it costs X, but then how much more can he sell? Or how much more can he work on a different part of his business to excel, and then hire someone to do the things he doesn't want to do? So it's not just
like
one
you
and
and the tuna fish, right?
Yeah.
If you want something bad enough, you'll be like, okay, I can cut back on my eating out here. I can just get tuna fish. And like, you know, there's ways that you can find in your budget if you want something bad enough.
I like that. That's going to be a new analogy. It's me and the tuna fish. I can make this work.
I love the stories that come out of it. But
Yeah.
I always talk about this show. Like we always talk about something at the beginning. You ever watch The Simpsons? Like they always have like a topic line.
Yeah.
And then the whole episode is completely different than the whole rest of the episode. And then it ends with like that same
Loops
topic.
around.
It loops back around.
Yeah.
And I always feel like these episodes, like somehow like something happens up
Keeps
and looping
coming
back
around.
It's like like the theme of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. And something I have learned about myself is I'm pretty motivated. So it's like that reflects in business and like how I've grown. But also like it kind of goes to the roots of like there were no jobs. So I like when I graduated, I definitely had my time of sulking and feeling bad about myself and poor me. But I ate the tuna fish and I went to the damn race. Like I figured it out.
Boom.
So
Yes.
and I think some of those core values, they're always with you.
Yes.
And it makes you who you are.
Yeah. Well, one, if you can remember when you ate the tuna fish, just scrape by so you could afford $300, you've been to the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you've been there,
but it wasn't really
out,
the bottom because like I still had a dirt bike. So
Yeah,
like if I was
you're
really
right.
at ground zero, I would have had to sell my $2,300 race bike or whatever,
But you've been to the point where you've had to figure out how to make the money to be able to do the thing you wanted to do. So if you've been in that spot and when I started my business, it was like I was really struggling, and it was remembering that I've had my back against the wall.
We've been broke before. That's what my husband always says.
Exactly.
So it's like, because definitely when we 10x'd our mortgage, it was like to get into this new place. It was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Our accountant says we can do this. Like we can do this. Here's all the figures, but this is scary. And John just looked at me and he's like, we've been broke before. If we got to eat tuna fish, well, he wouldn't eat tuna fish, but he does hunt. So if he had to eat venison every day, no big deal. We'll be all right. So yeah.
Plant the garden.
And we love to have a good garden every year for sure. And even if you don't, there's enough people that like don't have time to tend to theirs. So it's like phone a friend.
Yep.
Can I pull some weeds and grab a couple tomatoes?
Yep.
I don't think anyone would say no to that.
Yeah.
So for sure.
There are creative outside of the box ways to figure it out to solve that problem.
Yep. And I feel like that just comes with being an entrepreneur. You just figure it out.
Yep.
And like visionary, which you probably are. I certainly am.
Yeah.
It's like, let me noodle on this and have my 80 ideas and 8 are good or something a week.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So would you say your husband is more the integrator than?
Oh, no, he is not. He is neither.
Neither.
I had him take the rocket fuel test.
Okay.
Yep. He's neither. But in our staff, we had all of our staff take the test, and our office manager is definitely an integrator. And it was funny because when I read like the profile, it was just hilarious. It was me to a T. And then we're part of a peer group, and my husband was like, he told like the facilitator, he's like, now that she read that stupid book you guys assigned, she's got all these excuses. Like, this is why details later, which means details never. And they were like, well, you're welcome. It's true though, because I'm like, oh yeah, whatever, just do it. And it's like, no. And because he's more analytical, he needs that. And it was interesting reading that book because then my office manager was like, oh, I just don't like these creative tasks. No, she wants X, Y, Z. This is the list. This is the expectation. Go.
Yep.
Instead of me being like, why don't you just figure out some blog topics? And she's like, I hate this. So, but it was cool because I got to see her angle in that next chapter of Integrator. So.
Yeah.
So Jonathan is neither, but that doesn't mean he's, less of an employee.
Yes.
But it was cool to be like, okay, so he's not the integrator, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But we need help. So yeah, just getting all those roles filled because you can't have a visionary just changing stuff up every week. Oh, let's reinvent this. Let's do this. It'll be so cool. Mix it up and then leave and be like, why is this falling apart?
It's like going back to the notebooks. I'm like, man, I've invented the same thing like 7 times. What am I doing?
And that's why the whole process thing is so important because it's like, no. And now like John and my office manager, Jill, can be like, no, Trisha, we went through this. So we're going to keep this just like it is. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I thought that could be cool. No, we're going to keep it like this. And it's funny because it's so painful because then I read the book Process, and it's like, it's so painful to come up with that process, but gosh, once I have it, it's amazing.
Yes.
And it's just like clarity.
Yep.
And then you gotta, as you grow, you gotta keep redoing it. But yeah, it's been really good to define certain things.
It's so painful to build the process and
it's
come
like
up
just
with it.
go in my brain and figure it out.
But once you do, it's like, oh my God, it's like the lights turned on.
Agreed. And then everyone can see your brain and like what you're thinking too.
Yeah.
And the end goal. So,
and
it opens up creativity too. Like maybe someone else has a different way to explore that, but within these within these steps.
Parameters. So, yeah. And getting feedback, because sometimes, you have the doers that are going out and doing the things and they can give you feedback and make adjustments, but this is the process.
Yeah. And I don't want it to be too strict. Like it's got to be a little loose.
Yeah.
So yeah, but things are happening. HR and all that fun stuff.
So I know like this has been like a challenge too, like this is seasonality. You talk about this as being the busy season. What's that like as you go into, and when did your season cut off? And then what does that look like for you?
It's simply intense.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like, there's nothing, I've been doing this for so many years, 20 years this year, being in this industry. And it's like, it's just how it is. And so I always try to prepare myself. It's like, okay, we're going into May. All right, family. I love cooking. Guess what? Some nights might be hot dogs and cereal. Just get over it now. Yep. So it's like, I feel like as a household, we go through like a 2-week transition where my husband's like, what do you mean dinner's frozen? But this year that didn't happen. So that was a huge growth because it's like, yeah, I'm working on proposals in the evening and I still have to be a parent but I just do my best. And like, there was a moment I was keeping up on proposals really well within a week. And then I was like, I signed 4 designs in 2 weeks because we're seeing this volume of designs, and designs just take more time. So I did run behind on my proposals, but I told those people and they all seemed to understand. And the biggest thing in my industry is like, there's so many people out there with like a truck and a shovel and they're like, I'm a landscaper. But it's the follow-up. And so it's like, we hear from all these people. I called so many people, but they didn't answer the phone. Okay. Well, someone came out and then they never gave me the proposal. So it's like all these things I feel like are elementary. If we can just do that and keep the communication, do a couple slip, sure. Yeah. But I always own it. And, if I'm running late, hey, this is when I think it's going to I'll have this proposal to you a day later or whatever.
It's the communication.
Yeah, so it's just trying to get that together, and then 2, making sure like the client expectations are right on, and that the staff at least has some communication. Or like for example, we had a job get a little goofy with irrigation, so we had to break away for a couple days till we could remedy the situation to go back. So we kind of had a lot of moving parts because like next week's jobs we pushed to this week. So there were a couple of pending things that we kind of just had to push forward. And it's like, this isn't the most efficient way to do stuff. But if one plant gets missed, we'll have so-and-so grab it and whatever. But it was important for me to tell that crew member that loaded the truck the night before, oh, by the way, so-and-so is not going to be home. They want to be home. We're going to have to take all these plants out and put these new plants in, that it wasn't their fault. Because it's like, I don't know. So it's like all these little nuggets of communication, because if there's any problem, it's from communication, whether it's with a client, staff member.
Absolutely.
And you don't, it's like trust can be so high and you can lose it so quick. So we really do our best to communicate. So in May, communication's the name. And then, as you know, my daughter was sick 2 days. Yeah. Oh my gosh, if it's ever going to happen, it's going to happen in May. But very grateful for everyone's grace. Yeah, and most of the people we work with, they have family. I mean, everybody has family. Yeah. But especially the people that have the kids, it's like, it's unpredictable. And we're a family business. So and she needed to be cuddled. She's 5. She was sick. Yep. I can't, So I'm a parent too.
Well, it's cool that it gives you that flexibility and that you can, you've built that into your business, because again, it's important being that family business, and you see so many people that don't take that time.
Agreed. And then they just, I don't know, they're like, here's a tablet, figure it out. And I mean, sure, especially when she's whiny, sometimes I wish there was a pass, but But no, it's important to be there for those moments. And we do encourage our employees, and sometimes it's hard. Like we had 2 people down yesterday. Well, I can't fault you because there are a lot of people sick right now.
Yeah,
So
it's going around for sure.
It's real. But we just have to carry on. So, but for us, a huge push is Memorial Day. And we have to have, that's like, it's a milestone. And especially for people with poolscapes, they want their annuals in. That is the first big party or lake homes. So far, promises made, promises kept. That's our big deal. When it's Memorial, it's like, did everyone get done? Yes. Did the people that added services at our previous clients get done? Yes. Then we've nailed it. So, and we do pretty good every year.
That's
for
so
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's so awesome because it's like, it's hard work always, but you're completing the balance of your home life, your family,
I'm trying.
building a successful business.
Yeah. And it helps to have a good partner too.
Absolutely.
When my daughter was down, our new property is so cool. So thanks, Pekela Group. But it's like we have a spring-fed pond on there, and my daughter loves to kayak with my husband out there. And we go for golf cart rides because we're on acres and go through the woods and whatever. So he took her for 4 hours of golf cart rides, and probably more like 3, so I could get some proposals done. And it's like we all get it. And in our house, we always say everybody has to work. So, and if my stepdaughter's not going to be working out in the field, which is totally fine, then, hey, I need you to vacuum. And I don't expect crazy slave labor, but you can contribute a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and she's got a car now, so she can pick up groceries, and she's a good kid. Yeah. I got really lucky with that one. So, but yeah, everybody works.
It's so awesome when they get their license and they can go out and
freedom.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
They go run and do the things. And
she enjoys the independence. No doubt.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's good. It's good for her.
That's so cool.
Yep.
This has been such an awesome conversation.
It has.
I'm so glad that we were able to do it here in the studio and not have 3 different sound qualities that go throughout the episode. That's
oh goodness. Yeah. Nothing compares to Speakeasy. It's awesome.
I know. This is such a
I was telling Johnny and I've told Rob and so many other people, it's well produced. The sound is amazing. The video, so you can't go wrong. You've done good.
Everything here, and again, it goes down to the culture and the people. And Rob and Rob, Johnny, my guy Adam is amazing. Everybody here, it's so cool. So I get to. Today's not Monday. Today's Thursday, but I always say it's my joy of what I get to do every Monday. And coming in and just having an awesome conversation with an awesome person, and I don't have to do too much.
Yeah, you pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's huge. That's a huge piece, right? Is
so you can free up and you can do 2 speaking engagements yesterday or whatever.
Yep.
So it's important.
It is. It is. Just super awesome. Oh, and the other reason I thought it was awesome having you in on May is because we're both Geminis.
We are.
So my episode is next week. I'm doing a solo episode.
Nice.
So it's the birthday.
And you're May 20th or 21st? 23rd. I'm May 21.
21.
So,
Yep.
We are Geminis, and I've found that to be true. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Nope, I'm going to do that. So I am the 2.
It's so funny because I'm a completely extroverted person. I love, I get energy from being around other people.
Sure.
But then my twin is like, I could be at home for hours by myself.
Oh, I'm an introvert all the way. And yesterday, with that Sunny's thing where all those people met at Sunny, as I saw the guest list climb, I'm like, I can't go because I'm an introvert. So I will be drained.
Yep.
And I'm like, I have 3 appointments after that, with paying clients. I can't go. Which it's important. And I didn't identify that till last year to one of my friends. She, in our peer group, she was like, you know what you need or what you don't need after coming to these events, because we meet in person twice a year.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so funny. I think that's why I'm so stressed out when I return home, because I just plan a full day. I need a day to decompress.
Yep.
Whoa. So I'm going to try that this year.
It's so huge to like discover ourselves, and we continue to learn and grow.
Right.
But I think people get introvert and extrovert mixed up sometimes, and just how I look at it, because you talk about like the energy piece, and we talked about last night at the presentation about introvert and extrovert, because people assume like an introvert couldn't do sales.
Oh, yeah.
But you're a force to be reckoned with. Whenever I talk about you in public, I'm like, that's
Yeah.
the first thing that pops in my mind. I'm like, Trisha,
and
she's
people
a force
are like,
to be reckoned
you're
with.
not an introvert. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes,
it doesn't
I am.
mean that you're afraid to talk to people or anything else. It means that
No.
it takes amount of energy for you to do that. And so I think
does.
it sums it up well when you're like, when I'm going into this huge group, I'm going to be so depleted.
Yep.
being in
And
that
I
huge
enjoy
group.
it, and I have a great time. And normally, like when there's events, I'll sit in my car and I'll be like, why am I here? Why did I sign up for this? And I'm like, okay, let's go. I'm usually the last to leave.
Yeah.
But it really takes a lot for me to push through and like walk through the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so for me, yesterday, 3 events in a row, it was like, by the time I got home, my ears were burning. I was like on fire, because like being around people, I feed off from that energy, where it takes energy for you to go into that group.
And just like this spring, I was like, you know what? Like I'm putting different like limits on things. And I'm like, I can only meet with 3 people a day. That's it. So that's how my schedule is set.
Yeah.
And it's like my office manager, she can book appointments on my behalf. 3 people a day. That's it. Because I'm like, why am I so drained? And I was like, I met with 5 people. That's why. So, and it's important because like, especially for us, like some of these bookings, they book out like 2 to 3 weeks. So they're looking forward to it. They've been waiting.
Yep.
They don't want crappy Trisha.
That's absolutely
Good grief.
Yeah.
So it's important.
And that's the cool thing when you communicate with people too. I had an event that was planned for 6 to 8 last night.
Yeah.
And I realized over the weekend, oh my God, what did I do to myself? There's like all these events. So by the time I get to that one, I'm not going to give my best to that. And so I had a couple people and I was like, do you mind if we move it? And they're like, absolutely not.
Awesome.
Because it's like, again, I want to give you my best. I don't want to be here limping on my last, because like, even though I get the energy, I get really loopy after a while of like talking all day, So.
I can only imagine. And I have this thing I call an attitude adjustment. It's like, it's just 2 different teas you can get at a gas station. It's like the Pure Leaf unsweetened iced tea, and then the Pure Leaf green tea, not sweetened. I don't know where you find that tea. I've looked at Costco. I've looked at the grocery store. I don't know. I just have to ask a gas station if I can order a pallet or something, because it's always sweetened everywhere else. But if I drink one of those fast and I drink the green tea fast, I feel incredible. So if I were you and it was at 6 o'clock and you couldn't move it, I'd have what I call my attitude adjustment.
Attitude adjustment.
Which probably speaks to my age now. Oh, wow. Trisha's really crazy. She just drank 2 teas.
2 teas. Let your hair down, Trisha.
But it matters.
I get wild and crazy. I bust up my teas.
Watch out.
And I mix them.
So silly, but it works for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And it's, again, about finding out what works for you.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. I probably would have taken a power nap, like that 15-minute recharge, and been ready to go.
But it all worked out.
Yep.
That's
it
so
all worked
cool.
out. Because, again, people understand. And, again, I want to give my best to people. And when you can explain it to them and how it's going to benefit them, I think that's huge, too.
Got it.
This has been so awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I appreciate it.